Hey there, my name is Antonio and welcome to the newest video on my channel. In this tutorial, you're going to learn how to build an amazing learning management system platform. As you can see, I already have some courses which I've purchased and they are in progress. Some of them are completed and some of them are not. And I can also query these courses by clicking on a specific category like engineering, and that's only going to show the engineering courses. Or I can use the search bar at the top right here, where I can search for an example basics. And this is only going to query the courses which have basics in the title. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's find a course we like so we can purchase it. So I like this course, Yoga for Beginners. It has 5 chapters and it costs $15. So once I click on a specific course, I'm redirected to that course page. And before I purchase the course, I have a free chapter for me. As you can see in the sidebar right here, introduction is free, but all the other chapters are locked. I also have the enroll button right here, as well as my description of this course. If I try and manually click on a locked chapter, you can see that it says this chapter is locked. And I also have a banner which says you need to purchase this course to watch this chapter. So let's do exactly that. I'm going to click enroll for $15 right here. And now I'm going to get redirected to the Stripe checkout page. So I'm going to go ahead and fill out my fake information, my fake name, and I'm going to click pay. Once this information is processed, I'm going to get redirected back to the course page, just like this. Once I am back in the course page, you can see that I no longer have the enroll button. Instead, I have a mark as complete button. I also have attachments for this course which my teacher put inside. And if you look at the sidebar, you can see that all of the chapters are now unlocked. I can either manually click mark as complete, which is going to update my progress, or I can wait for the video to end. And once that happens, you can see that the very same thing will happen. Progress has been updated and I'm redirected to the next chapter. So let's go ahead and let's manually complete these remaining chapters because I want to show you what happens once you reach the end of a course. So I have one more video to watch and let's let the video player complete this one for us. So once it reaches the end, you can see that we have a nice little confetti because we finished the entire course. Great. Now let me show you how the student dashboard looks like. So in the student dashboard, you can see all of your courses. All that it's important is that you've purchased them. It doesn't matter if you completed them or not. As you can see, some of them are 100% complete and some of them are still in progress. But now let me show you how easy it is to edit, manage, and create your courses as a teacher. So I'm going to click at teacher mode right here. And as you can see, I have a table with all of my courses, their price, and as well as their status. Now let me show you the analytics tab right here. So teacher is able to look at the total sales they've made, total revenue they've made, and how much each course has generated for them. Now let's go back to the courses right here and let me show you how easy it is to edit a course. So I'm going to choose Cinematic Techniques and I'm going to press edit right here. Inside, I'm redirected to the course setup page. And let's quickly change the title to Cinematic Techniques edited like this. And let's click save. That is immediately updated. Great. I can do the same thing for description. I can do the same thing for a new image. I can also change the category. I can add new attachments, change the price. And one cool thing that I can do is I can reorder my chapters. For example, you can see that introduction comes after the outro. Well, that's not good, isn't it? So let's drag the outro all the way to back. And there we go. This is now updated and now my chapters are in the correct order. I can also add a new chapter or I can edit an existing chapter in a completely separate view. As you can see here, I can upload a new video if I want to, and I can change my description inside a rich text editor like this. I can also change the access settings. So for example, check this box if you want to make this chapter free for preview. So I can choose as many chapters as I want so my students can see it for free. I can also unpublish a specific chapter. And if you go back to your course setup, but before we do that, you can see that I already have a banner saying this chapter is unpublished. It will not be visible in the course. So if I go back to the course setup, you can see that this now says introduction and it's a draft. I can also unpublish the entire course and now it will not be visible anywhere. And I can just as easily publish it back. So now let me show you how easy it is to create a new course from scratch. So let's click on the new course right here. Let's give it a name like Advanced Web Development, like this, and let's click Continue. We are going to get redirected to a familiar screen. So let's add a description. This is a course about development, like this. Let's click Save right here. And notice how my Publish button is grayed out because I cannot publish this course yet. I still need to finish a couple of fields. So let's add a course image using Upload a Thing right here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select a specific image from Unsplash. And once it's uploaded, it's going to be immediately shown in this form right here. Great. Now let's add a category. So this one is going to be computer science, and let's click Save. Great. Now we have the category. Let's give our course a price. So I'm going to set a price for this course to be $10.99. And I'm going to click Save right here. I still cannot publish my course because I am missing a chapter. So let's go ahead and let's add a chapter for introduction, for example. I'm going to click Create, and I still cannot publish my course because I require at least one chapter to be published and not a draft. So let's go ahead and let's click on this pencil button right here. Let's give this chapter a description. So I'm going to write, this is a chapter description, like that, and let's click Save like this. And let's go ahead and edit access settings. So this is free for preview. I'm going to click Save, and last thing I have to do is I have to add a specific video. So let's go ahead and let's upload a video here. So again, we are using Upload Thing to upload the video, but we are using Mux to process the video. So it's in highest quality and in a very nice video player. As you can see, I have a message here that videos can take a few minutes to process. And that's what's written right here. The video is not currently available, but this is enough for us to publish this chapter. So once I published this chapter, you can see that now if I go back, I can finally publish this course as well. But before we do that, let's add just another chapter, outro, for example, and let's click Create right here. And let me demonstrate one more time how easy it is to do this. So I can just drag and drop, and now I've reordered my chapters. So let's move them back to their proper position now, and let's quickly edit everything we need for this chapter. So I'm going to write, this is an outro, like this, and I'm going to click Save. And once again, I'm going to upload the same asset right here. Let's wait for Upload Thing to do its thing, and then let's just quickly wait for Mux to process the video. So after this is done, and after this is refreshed, I can click on Publish for this chapter as well. And I can go back to my course setup right here. And as you can see, I have a free tag for this chapter, but not free tag for this chapter. I don't have to add attachments, but I can if I want to. And now I can finally click Publish for this course. And after this course has been published, I have a nice little confetti here. So let's look at our courses right here. And as you can see, now I have Advanced Web Development costing $10 right here. So let's go ahead and let's find that course in our platform. So I've just clicked on the exit button right here. And let's go to Browse, where we already were in the beginning. And in here, you're going to be able to see a new course, Advanced Web Development with 2 chapters. And once I click here, you can see that I have an introduction, which is free, and an outro, which is locked. So this is what you're going to build. I think this is an amazing, amazing project, and we have a lot to do. So without further ado, let's get started. So let's go ahead and let's set up our project. So I'm going to be using Shadcn UI as our design library, and we're going to be using Next.js as our framework. So you can go ahead and visit the Shadcn UI documentation because I'm going to follow these instructions to set up our project. So the first command I'm going to run is the create next app, which you might already be familiar with. So I'm going to go inside of my Visual Studio Code right here, and I'm going to go ahead and open the terminal. In here, I'm going to paste the command which I just copied, but I'm just going to modify it a little bit. So as you can see, it starts with npx create next app, then an @ and it says latest. So that ensures that your next version is always going to be the most up-to-date version. But in my experience, as of writing this video, the newest version is actually a bit unstable in development. So what I actually recommend doing is that you remove the latest and write npx create next app at 13.4.12 like this. Then just change my-app to your desired project name. So in my case, it's going to be LMS-tutorial. Like that, and you can leave everything else the same. So I'm going to expand this screen so you can see the final command. So there it is, npx create-next-app at 13.4.12 LMS tutorial --TypeScript --Tailwind and --Slint. Perfect. So if you're watching this in the future, if you want to, you can use the at latest, especially if 13.4.12 is outdated in your opinion. But if you're watching this just recently after it's been released, you can feel safe to use the version that I've written in this command right here. And just go ahead and press enter. When this is prompted, just type yes and press enter like this. Now it's asking us whether we want to use the source directory. For that, you can select no. For the app router, it's important that you select yes, because it's going to be crucial for this project. Would you like to customize the default import alias? You can select no and just let the packages install. Great. Now that you have your project installed, you're gonna go ahead and open it. So as you can see, mine is in the LMS-tutorial folder. So let's go ahead and let's open that folder. So LMS-tutorial like that. And now that you're inside of this folder, if you get this prompt, you can safely press yes, I trust the authors. Great. What we have to do now is we have to run the CLI for ShadCN UI. So I'm going to copy that from the documentation as well. Don't worry, you're going to see exactly what it is in the terminal now. So make sure you've opened your project. So in your sidebar, you should have the app folder, the public folder, the next configs, the Tailwind config, the TS config, and stuff like that. So make sure you are in the proper project and then open your terminal again. And inside of this terminal, go ahead and paste npx shadcn-ui at latest init like that. And go ahead and press enter. So it's asking us whether we are using TypeScript. Since we initialized our next project with TypeScript, the answer for that is yes. For the style, choose the default. For the color, you can choose slate color. For the global CSS file, this is the correct location. You can select yes for the CSS variable options as well. Our tailwind.config.js is located in a proper, so what you want to do with this one, you can just press enter, but you can also check. So just make sure that it's tailwind.config.js. If it's not, make sure you write the correct one here. So for my case, it's the correct one. The import alias, it's also correct. The URLs are also correct, and we are using server components. So this is related to the app router option in the next 13. Let's go ahead and press Y, and now it says whether we want to write this configuration to components.json, which practically means do you want to confirm all of these options. So just go ahead and press Y, and now it's going to install ShadCN UI. Great, now that that is done, you can go ahead and finally run npm run dev inside of your project, and you're going to have your project running on localhost 3000. So let's go ahead to localhost 3000, and in here you're going to see a screen similar to this. Great. Now what I want to do is I want to clean up the entire project and maybe show you a little bit how to use ShadCN UI. So I'm just going to collapse this a bit, and I'm going to go ahead inside of my app folder, and I'm going to go inside of page.tsx right here. So I'm going to go and remove everything inside of this return function. So all the way from the starting of the main element, all the way to the bottom where it ends. And I'm just going to remove it. And instead, I'm just going to write a paragraph saying hello world like that. Great. Now it's a very, very small text, so let me zoom in for you. Great. Now let's test out our Tailwind setup. So I'm going to go ahead and write a class name, text-3xl, font-medium, for example, and let's give it a color of sky 700 like this. As you can see, it works. So I've successfully styled my text here. And if you're wondering how am I getting this little color, how do I have, when I hover over a CSS class, how do I have the exact CSS and how do I have the autocomplete? Well, that's an extension called Tailwind IntelliSense. So you just just search for Tailwind, and there you go. It's the first one right here. All right. Now what I want to show you is how easy it is to use Shadcn UI to add components. So if you take a look at your folder structure, you have the components folder, but it's currently empty. So Shadcn init added this folder, but we have not added any components yet. So let's go ahead and let's do that. So I'm gonna go ahead back into the Shadcn UI library, and I'm gonna go and find a component I like. So we are most certainly going to need the button component. So I'm gonna choose that one. So let's go ahead now and let me copy this CLI installation. So npx Shadcn UI add latest add button, and let's go ahead and add that inside of our terminal. So I'm gonna go ahead and open a new terminal. And I'm going to write it here. So npx Shadcn-ui add latest add button, like this. After you press enter, you just have to confirm to install this component, and now it's installing button. After that is done, I'm just going to close this second terminal because I don't need it. Make sure your app is running. And now let's go ahead and let's check our components folder again. So now you're going to see that in the components folder, you have a new folder called UI, and in there you have button.tsx. So this is how the Shadcn UI library works. It's not going to add the components inside of our node modules like most component libraries do. Instead, it gives us full access to the component inside of the components folder. So this is perfect for building our own component system, or just using the default ones. Great. Now let's go ahead back inside of our app folder inside of page.tsx. And let's wrap this thing in a div like this. And below the paragraph, let's add a button from add/components/UI/button. And let's write click me, for example. I'm going to visit my website back, and there we go. You can see a nice little button that we have here. And let me show you how easy it is to add a variant, for example. So just write variant to be destructive like this, and now it's a danger button. But this is the cool thing about Shadcn UI. So you can go back inside of the components folder UI button.tsx. And if you want to, you can find this destructive variant, and you can change the color from BG destructive to, let's say, you don't have to do this. So I'm just gonna do this for fun. Emerald 700 like this. And see, I just changed the variant just like that. So you can play around. Of course, you don't have to do this. You can just revert the destructive to what it was. Or you can add a completely new variant here. For example, sky and bg-sky-700 like this. And now I can go back inside of my page and I can change the variant from destructive to sky because I just added that. So that's what's really cool about the Shadcn UI library. It gives you full access to your components and you can fully customize them to whatever you like. Great. So I'm just going to remove everything and leave the button as it is. If you change too much stuff, you can always rewrite your entire component using this command. So let's say I added a bunch of stuff inside, and this can happen. I don't know, you forgot to save, or you saved too much and you cannot undo it. So I just ruined this button on purpose, but you don't have to do it. You can always just go back to this CLI command, and you can go ahead back inside of your terminal. I'm going to open a new one, and let me expand this. So you can write this, but just add -- overwrite like that. Let me just -- overwrite like this. And now that is going to overwrite the existing button component. Right? And if I go back here, you can see that there is no gibberish, and now everything in my button works. And of course, I have to remove the sky because it doesn't exist. Neither does the danger. It's destructive, right? Like this. Great. So you just learned the basics of using the Shadcn UI library. All the components are built in pretty much the same way, but it gives you a lot more customization than any other component library project would. So this is going to be perfect for our custom LMS platform. Great job so far. One thing I want to do before we move on is quickly head into our app folder inside of globals.css. And just before, I'm not going to remove anything here, but let's just add HTML. Let's add body, and let's add root like this, and let's just write height 100%. So this is going to come useful later. Perfect. So you're not going to be able to see any changes here, but that's good enough for now. Great job, and see you in the next part. So now it's time for us to learn how the project structure works. How are we going to use these folders, and what types of folders we are going to use? So before we do that, I just quickly want to go back to my package.json. And remember that I told you to use npx create next app 13.4.12. Well, I thought that was also going to change the next version to that version, but it's not doing that. So let's manually change that, because next 13.4.19 is working, but in development it causes a lot of crashes because it has some memory issues. So what I want you to do is go inside of your package.json and find next 13.4.19 and change that to 12 like this, and do the same thing for slint config next. So 13.4.19 is now turning into 12 like this, and then just quickly head back inside of your terminal right here. So I'm gonna close this, I'm going to shut down my application. I recommend you do the same and just write npm install. That's all you need to do. So the new version, which we just written here, is gonna be set up in the project. So we're gonna work with next 13.4.12. Great. And now we can go ahead and run your project again, and you shouldn't actually see any changes, but trust me, your development is going to be much easier with this version. That's something I encountered while developing this on my own. Great. So no big deal if you don't manage to do this. You can still work with 0.19. It is more up to date than 0.12, but as I said, as of writing this video, there are some development issues with it, causing a lot of crashes and making you have to restart your application every time it happens. Great. So this is going to ensure that we don't have to do that every time. Perfect. Now what I want you to do is I want you to install a very cool package called next.nav. So just search for next.nav inside of your extensions, and it's this one right here. So make sure you install that. And what I want to show you is how cool it is. So I just discovered it the other day, and what you can do is press Ctrl-Shift-P or Command-Shift-P if you are on a MacBook. So you have this console open right here, and just write next.nav like this and press enter like that. And I'm going to zoom out just a bit right here. And right now, all of this is dummy, right? So this data doesn't really exist. We don't have this yet. But what you have to do is you have to click on this button right here. So let me zoom in back. So this button right here, and it has a placeholder for source/app. We are not using the source folder. So all we have to do is write app like this and click submit like that. And there we go. Now you can see our very simple flow right here, where we have the globals, the layout, and the page inside of our app folder. And then that's exactly true, as you can see in my folder here. So I only have the globals, the layout, and the page, no other subfolders inside. But now we're gonna play around with the routing inside of Next 13, so you learn how to do that, and so you learn how to do something called route groups, which will not affect the URL. So without me talking, let's actually start and let's create a very simple route. So let's say we want to go to localhost 3000/test. If I do that now, we're going to get a 404 that this page could not be found. So let's go inside of our code, inside of the app folder, and create a new folder called test. And inside of that folder, create a new file, page.tsx, like this. Now, in the tutorial, you're going to see me using this shortcut a lot of times. So I'm going to write SFC, and then I'm going to press tab, and this is going to autocomplete for me. If you're interested in what that is, it is an extension called Simple React Snippets. So there we go. So Simple React Snippets, this one. So just install that if you want to use the same shortcut as I am. So I just write SFC after I install that. You can see I have an autocomplete for stateless function component, and I just press tab. And then I can go ahead and write test page like this. I can press tab, and then I am focused on the props. I can press tab one more time, and then I'm focused in the return function. So inside, I'm going to write a div saying this is a test page like this. And now you can see that we no longer have an error on my /test page. So it's neither a 404 nor it is an error. So it is exactly the page that we've written here. And let's visit our next.nav now. So I'm just going to go ahead and reload my window here, and let me reload next.nav. All right, let me add our app folder again. And there we go. You can see that now I have the app folder, and I also have the test folder with page.tsx inside. So that's exactly our structure here. So I think this is very useful for you to learn the workflow and the project structure inside Next 13. Great. So now we learned how to create a test route. Now, one cool thing that we can also do is create a new folder, and let's call this one API. And inside, let's create another folder called, I don't know, again, you can do test like this. And inside, this time, we're going to write route.ts. So instead of page.tsx, we're going to write route.ts. And let's go ahead and let's write a quick route here. So we're going to use route handlers. So write export asynchronous function get like this. And let's just return next response, which you can import from next/server.json like this. And let's just write test hello as an object like this. And this is now available as /API/test. So I'm going to go inside of my page and I'm going to change my route to /API/test like this. And you can see that I have a response from the server giving our object back. So that's how we're going to create our API routes. Great. So now you know how to create a route, you know how to create a page, but let me show you one cool thing that we can do. So there is the thing in Next called route groups. So as you've just learned, every folder that I create, which has a page inside of it, becomes a route in our project, right? But what if we want to use a folder simply for organizing and not with the intention for it to become a route? Well, we can do that by using route groups. So I'm going to create a new folder like this, and I'm going to call it group like this. And inside, I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder, and this is going to be called, I don't know, let's say route A, like that. So it doesn't matter, whatever you want. You can write your name inside if you want to. And inside, create a new page.tsx, like that. And let's go ahead and use the shorthand, so route A, and let's write a div saying this is a route inside a group folder. Like that. So what do you think? How do we access this route now? Well, it seems like we have to go to /group and then to /route A, right? Well, that's not correct. All we have to do is go to /route A or whatever you named your folder. So see how this looks. So it's just /route A. That means that we successfully told the Next.js that this group folder is purely for organizing. So we don't care what you put inside. This group is not going to be a part of URL. And this is very useful because this route group can have its own layout. So for example, let's say that I want all the routes inside of this group folder to have a background color of red. So let me show you that. I'm going to create a new one saying, I don't know, let's call it test. Let's call it Antonio, like my name, for example. And inside, I'm going to create a new page.tsx, sfc, Antonio page, a div saying Antonio page, like that. So again, if I go to localhost 3000/Antonio now, you can see that I have Antonio page. But let me show you one cool thing about layouts. So if I create a layout.tsx file inside of this group folder, it is going to reflect to all of the routes or whatever you want to call them, or the folders inside of this route group folder. So let me create a new file here called layout.tsx, like this. Right? You can see I have an error because layout requires a default export. So make sure you're inside of layout.tsx, which you created inside of your parenthesis group folder. And let's just go ahead and write group layout like this. Now the required prop inside is children. And we can quickly write the types for it as well. So colon, children, React.React node like this. So I'm using GitHub Copilot if you're interested in why am I having these auto completions. Great. And what I'm going to write is a div, and I'm going to render children inside. If I save, nothing has changed with my Antonio page and nothing has changed with my Route A page. So they are both exactly the same. But let's do a cool thing with a class name of h-full and bg-sky-700 and text-white, for example. So I added some styles. And look at what happened now. So every single route inside of this group folder will now have this exact style, which I've written here, right? So if I go to /Antonio instead of Route A, look at that. It also has the same background and the text is white. But if I go to my /test, you can see that it doesn't have that. That is because my test route, you can see it is outside of this group folder right here. So that's how useful this group folders are, because they are used for exactly that, for grouping routes inside of one folder without affecting the URL, but still having a really cool functionality of having custom layouts. So we're going to use this a lot of times. And one more thing what you can do is you can break from your main layout. For example, let's say inside of your app you have a sidebar and you have a navbar, right? And what if you want to create a new route which doesn't have the two? Well, you can do it exactly like this, by creating a new group route outside of that other group route. Don't worry, it's gonna make a bit more sense when we start using these folders. So I wanna go ahead and delete the group folder now. I wanna go ahead and delete the API folder now. And I'm also gonna delete the test folder now as well. And you can close this next.nav. I'm gonna open it every now and then so you get familiar with our structure. What I wanna do now is I want to move this page.tsx from the app folder inside of a route group. So this is the structure that I'm going to use. I'm going to create a new folder called dashboard, like that. And inside, I'm going to create a new folder called routes. Make sure both of these folders are in parentheses. So none of this is going to be inside of the URL. And inside of these routes, I'm going to drag and drop the page like this and click move. Like that. And this might happen to you. So you can see that in my open editor, it says I have one unsaved file. And if you look at that file, it's page.ts from .next/types/app, right? So what you can do is just open that unsaved one. You can see it's very weird code. We did not write it, and just press save. And that's it. So you're not going to get any error anymore. But in case you mess this up, in case you think you did something wrong, don't worry. So this .next folder is just cache. So let me show you what I'm going to do. Let's say I accidentally messed it up. So what I can do is I can shut down my app and run rf.next, or whatever your command for deleting a folder is. Or you don't even have to use the command. You can just manually right click and delete the folder .next like that. And all you have to do is run your app again. And let me show you. So in a couple of seconds, there we go. I have a completely new generated .next folder. So all that .next is cache. So you don't have to worry if you mess that up. That unsaved file can happen every time you move a page inside of another folder. So I just show you a quick way to fix that if it ever happens to you. Great. Now I have my main page, which has the hello world and the button inside of two organizational routes. But if you look at my URL, it hasn't changed. So it's still at localhost 3000. That's exactly what I want, right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another folder called auth, like this. And inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and create another folder, routes, the same. And then I'm going to create a new folder called sign-in, for example. It doesn't matter right now, this is just dummy, right? And inside create a new file, page.tsx, like that. Let's go ahead and let's call this sign in page. And let's just write div, this is an unprotected page, like this. And let's go inside of our dashboard, routes, page.tsx. And let's go ahead and change this to have a paragraph of this is a protected page, like that. And you can remove the import from the button from our components folder like this. Great. So you can see that now it says this is a protected page. This means that in the future, this entire dashboard folder, which I've created right here, is not going to be available for not logged in users. But everything inside of the auth folder is going to be available for the not logged in users. And those are going to be two routes, sign in and sign up. And the reason I created this routes folder one more time, you don't have to technically do it, but I just want to separate my logic, because inside of this auth folder, I'm going to have a new file called layout. And you're going to see that in the next part where we added the authentication. So now on localhost 3000, it says this is a protected page. But if I go to /sign-in, which is the folder we created, it's going to be it's just the /sign-in, my apologies, it's correct. Now it says this is an unprotected page, right? So this is going to be visible for everyone, but the localhost 3000 is going to be protected. Right now, of course, this doesn't work, but in the next part, we're going to add clerk, which is going to protect our entire application with a middleware. Great. So you just learned the basics of folders. And if you want to, you can use next.nav. So Command-Shift-P or Control-Shift-P, next.nav like this. And let's go ahead and let's click on the button and let's write app. Like that, and there we go. Now you can see our structure. So we have the app folder, we have the route group called dashboard, and inside we have a route group called routes, and inside we have a single page.tsx, which is actually our protected page. Great. In the out folder, we have a routes folder and we have a sign in folder, and inside of that we have our unprotected page. So that's our structure for now. Great job. So now let's go ahead and let's create our authentication, for which we prepare the folders right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to visit clerk.com. So you can either Google Clerk authentication, or you can use the link in the description, or just go to clerk.com. Go ahead and find the sign in button. So let me just expand a bit. So sign in or sign up, and you can use GitHub, Google, or your email address to create an account. So go ahead and do that. Once you're inside of Clerk dashboard, you're gonna get greeted with a similar screen. So let's go ahead and let's give our application a name. So I'm gonna call it LMS-tutorial, like that. Let's go ahead and let's choose how our users will sign in. So I have pre-enabled the email address and Google. If you want to, you can look at 20 more and you can enable all of this. You can even use Web3 MetaMask login if you want to. So for me, I'm just going to choose email address and Google. And after that, I'm going to click create application like this. Now let's go ahead and let's add these API keys for the Next.js project. So make sure you click Next.js here, and let's go ahead and let's copy this environment keys right here. So I'm going to go inside of my project and I'm going to do a couple of things. So before I create my environment folder, first thing I'm going to do is go inside of .gitignore file. So let me just zoom in. So .gitignore, and go ahead and find your .environment.local. And below that, just add a .environment file as well. Great. Now, after you've done this, let's go ahead and let's create our environment file. So I'm going to click on new file, .environment, like that. And inside, paste your Clerk keys, which we just copied from this dashboard right here. So let me show you one more time. So you can either use the copy button, or you can click on the little eye icon and select everything and copy it here. Great. Make sure you added those to your environment file. So make sure you have next public Clerk publishable key and Clerk secret key, and save this file. Great. Now that we have that, make sure again that your Next.js is selected and click continue in docs like this. Now let's go ahead and let's install the package for Clerk Next.js. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to go inside of my terminal right here. We can shut down the application. And let me just expand my screen a bit, and let's install Clerk Next.js like this. So just go ahead and press enter and wait a couple of seconds for this to install. After it's been installed, let's take a look at some other steps that we have to do. So the step 2 is set environment keys, but we already did that inside of our .environment file right here. So we can skip step 2. Now let's go ahead to mounting our Clerk provider. So what we have to do, we are using the app router, so this is a good pre-selected tab. Make sure that is pre-selected, and as you can see, we have to go inside of the app folder, inside of layout.tsx, and we have to add this Clerk provider wrapping our entire HTML. So let's go ahead and let's do that now. I'm going to close the terminal. I'm going to close everything here. Go inside of your app folder, find the layout.tsx right here, and let's go ahead and let's import Clerk provider from @clerk/next.js like that. And then go ahead and wrap your entire HTML inside of this Clerk provider like this. And you can indent it so it's easier for the eyes. Great. So now we have the Clerk provider. What we have to do next is we have to create a middleware for our application. So find step 4, protect your application, and copy this code like this. Now let's go ahead. Let's go inside of our folder structure and create a new file, not inside of the app folder. So you can click on, for example, gitignore, and then click new file. There we go. So make sure it's outside of all folders and name it middleware.ts like that. And inside you can paste this right here. Great. So now we have the middleware. Make sure you save that file. Let's look at some other steps that we have to do now. So we have to create our sign in and our sign up pages. As you can see, we have to create a folder sign up. Inside of that, we have to create a dynamic folder sign up and then page.tsx and paste this inside. So let's go ahead and let's do that. So we're not going to use the root. Instead, we're going to use our pre-made out group folder. So go inside of this out folder and go inside of the routes, and you can actually remove this sign in folder. Let's do it all over again. So go inside of your out folder, go inside of your routes folder and create a new folder called sign-up like this. And inside, create another folder, open square brackets and spread sign-up like this. But before you press enter, make sure you put double square brackets like this. So double square brackets sign-up. So it's very important that it follows this convention, because this convention will enable Clerk to have access to all the dynamic routes it needs in the Next.js project. And inside of that, create a new file, page.tsx like that. And what we're going to put inside is written right here. So you can just copy this like that and just paste right here. There we go. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's do the same thing, but for sign in page. So it's the very same process. Inside of the routes folder, create a new folder, sign-in like that. Inside of that, create another folder with double square brackets and spread sign-in like that. And inside, create a new file, page.tsx again. And let's go ahead and copy. So make sure you don't copy the same one. So this is for sign up and this one is for sign in. So copy that and paste it in that page.tsx and save the file. There we go. So let me just expand my folders. So we have the sign in folder with the sign in dynamic routes, and inside we are importing the sign in and returning it. And same is true for sign up. Sign up folder, dynamic sign up routes, and page.tsx is importing sign up and exporting sign up. Or if you want to, you can go ahead and look at next.nav. Let's add our app folder and let's see how that looks. So as you can see, inside of my out folder, I have routes. These routes have sign in and sign up folders, and they have dynamic sign in and sign up folders again, which have page.tsx, which export the proper components. Great. Before we can move on, let's go ahead and let's see what else we have to do. So we have to update our environment variables. So you can just copy this right here, and let's go ahead and let's go inside of our .environment file. So find your .environment like this, and after the Clerk secret key, go ahead and paste the sign in URL, sign up URL, after sign in URL, and after sign up URL. So how do we know that this sign in URL is /sign-in and this one is /sign up? So again, make sure you save this file after you pasted these keys. So the reason we know that is because we named our folders that way. So we know that this is sign-in, that's why we put /sign-in. Same is true for sign-up. So if you want to rename this to register and login, you can do that. But make sure you also rename the dynamic folder inside. So if this is register, this has to be .register as well. Same is true for login, right? And then you have to change those to login and register. But you can just follow along and leave it exactly as it is. Great. And now that we have that, we are actually ready to test our application app. But before we do that, let's go inside of the app folder, inside of the dashboard folder, and let's go inside of routes page.tsx right here. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import user button from @Clerk Next.js. And all I'm going to do inside is render a div with user button, user button like that. And let's go ahead and let's give it a prop after sign out URL to just be a slash like this. Let's go inside of our terminal now. And let's go ahead and let's run npm run dev like this. Great. Now let's revisit our application. If I refresh now, what's going to happen is that our /route is protected. So we're going to get redirected to the login page like this. But as you can see, it is not centered. I want this entire thing to be centered. So let's see how we can do that. Well, we can make use of our route group now. So that is located inside of this out folder here. And we have the routes folder here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to collapse the route folder. I'm going to go inside the out folder and I'm going to create a new file, layout.tsx, like this. Let's go ahead and let's import out layout. We need the children for the layout. Let's add the props for the children. So children is a type of React.React node. And let's go ahead and let's add a div and render the children inside. For now, nothing is going to change. But if I add a class name of h-full, flex, items-center, and justify-center, you can see that now our form is centered exactly as I want it. And same is true for the sign up route. So both sign in and sign up are now rendered. And as you can see, if you try and manually change the URL to something that is not sign in or sign up, it's not going to work, right? As you can see, it immediately redirects. But let me quickly show you before we log in how you can add custom unprotected routes. So as I've said, everything inside of our dashboard folder is now not accessible unless you're logged in. Everything inside of the out folder is accessible. Why? Well, because we named our folders sign in and sign up. And Clerk is automatically going to unprotect those routes if you add them in the environment variables. But let me show you how you can add other unprotected routes regardless of the environment key and regardless if they are used for actually signing up. So inside of my app folder, I'm going to create a new folder called test. And inside, I'm going to create a file, page.tsx. Let's go ahead and let's give this a test page and a div. This should be unprotected. Right, so even logged out users should be able to see our test page. So I'm going to go to localhost 3000/test. But look at this, I'm redirected to sign in. So how do I enable this? Well, very easily. All you have to do is visit your middleware.ts. So let me expand my screen a bit so I can expand the sidebar. Visit the middleware.ts, go inside of the auth middleware, and all you have to do is add public routes like this. So this is an array, and inside you can just write /test like this. So now, after you save that file and revisit the test, there we go. Look at this. I can now visit this page even if I'm not logged in. Now, for our use case, we're not going to need that. So all of our routes are going to be protected. But this is just a tip for your personal project if you're using Clerk. Great. So now if I refresh, there we go. I'm back to this login page. So go ahead and log in into your page. And since my last page was /test, I am now, after I've been logged in, I am redirected back to that test page. But if you go to /localhost, you can see that now we have a nice user button here. And in here you can see your email, you can manage your account, or you can click sign out. And after you sign out, you're back into the login page. So let me just go back inside. And there we go, I am back inside. Great, so you successfully finished the authentication for your project. I think this is a really fast method of using authentication, and Clerk gives you the best security practices. So by using Clerk, you actually have an entire authentication team dedicated to giving you the best authentication experience, security, all with up-to-date practices. Great job so far. What we're going to focus on next is creating our layout. So our navbar, our sidebar, and then we are slowly gonna go and set up our database and create some first courses. All right, let's go ahead and let's create our layout with our sidebar and with our navbar for the dashboard group folder. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go inside of my app folder. I'm going to go inside of the dashboard folder. And in here, I'm going to create a new file called layout.tsx like this. Now we have this error because currently our layout component is not exporting anything. So let's go ahead and fix that. So I'm going to use the shorthand like this. I'm going to call it dashboard layout like that. I'm going to extract the children from the props, and I'm going to go ahead and give the children a type. So children are a type of React node like this. Great. Now I'm going to go inside and I'm just going to render a div which renders that children. And there we go. Nothing has changed, but now we have our dashboard ready to be developed further. So let's go ahead and let's give this wrapping div a class name of h-full like this. Now let's go ahead and let's create our sidebar. So I'm going to go ahead and create a div like this with a class name of hidden. So hidden is going to be only on small devices, right? As you can see, when I hover over hidden, it says that all it does, it says to display to none. But I'm gonna add a new class here called MD-Flex. So on all devices up until medium, it's gonna be hidden, but when it reaches medium device, it's gonna be flex, meaning it's no longer gonna be hidden and it's gonna use the flexbox attributes. Great. Let's also give it an h full, a w of 56, flex-call, so all the items go underneath each other, a fixed, and inset-y-0. And let's also give it a z-index of 50, so it's above other elements. Great. Now inside of that div, let's go ahead and let's render the sidebar like this. So I'm just gonna end this tag, and I have not imported this from anywhere. So when I save, I'm gonna get an error because sidebar is not defined. So I'm going to show you our structure for creating components which are not going to be reused throughout the project and are only going to be needed inside of a specific route group. So usually in my other tutorials, I put all of my components inside of the components folder. But for this tutorial, I want to try out something different. So in this components folder is only going to be used for global reusable components across multiple files. But when I am inside of the dashboard route group, if I know that a specific component is only going to be used inside of this folder, we can leverage a new convention here. So let's go ahead and let's create a new folder with an underscore components. So underscore will exclude this folder from the URL, right? So similar to wrapping your folder in parentheses. The only thing is that this one does not have all the attributes and properties that route group has, which we've seen in previous parts of this tutorial, like adding a shared layout. So this is actually perfect for just using for organization of our components, right? And not our entire routes. Great, so inside of this underscore components, which is on the same level of this layout, which is currently having an error, let's go ahead and let's create a new file called sidebar.tsx like this. Great, and let's go ahead and let's write export const sidebar like this, and let's return a div saying sidebar like that. Great, now let's go back to our layout where we have the error, and now we can just import that from /_components/sidebar, right? Because we are in the same level. So from the layout, we just go inside of this folder, inside of this sidebar like this. Great. And now you can see that we no longer have any errors. So let's go back inside of that sidebar component inside of our underscore components, and let's develop further. So I'm going to go ahead and give this div a class name of h-full border-r, so only on the right side, and let's give it a flex-call overflow-y-auto bg-white and shadow-sm like this. And if you're not seeing anything, make sure that you expand your screen so you can see how now it is visible, right? But if I collapse, it's not visible. And if you don't remember why that is, well, that's because on small devices, sidebar is going to be hidden, and we're going to trigger manually using a menu later when we have the navbar. So you can either do one of the two things. You can either expand your screen so you can see the sidebar, or if you're like me and you want to display both of these things, you can just zoom out a lot. For example, you can see how when I zoom in, it disappears, but when I zoom out, it's visible. So just make sure your sidebar is visible while you're developing this. So you can either expand your screen or zoom out, one of the two. There we go. Great. Now let's go back inside of our sidebar component right here where we added these class names. And let's go ahead and remove the text sidebar, and let's add a div with the class name of padding 6 on all sides like that. And inside we're going to create a new component called logo like this. So once I save this, you can see that we get another error. So let's go ahead, and while we are in this underscore components folder, let's create a new file called logo.tsx like that. And inside we're going to import image from next/image like that, and let's export const logo to return an image like this. Let's go ahead and give it a height of 130, a width of 130 as well, an alt of logo, and a source of /logo. In my case, it's going to be .svg. So this doesn't matter. You just have to go ahead and find an image for the logo you like. And let me show you how I'm going to do that. So there is this cool website called Logoipsum. You can visit it, logoipsum.com. It's a very cool website where you can find dummy logos like this for your side projects, right? So just make sure you don't actually use this for your business. If you want that, you can contact the creator of this website. But for side projects or just a tutorial like this, where we need a placeholder for our logo, this is a really cool website because it has really nice logos, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pick this one right here, and I just copied the SVG. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go inside. Let me just close everything here. So I'm going to go inside of my public folder, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new file called logo.svg. So you can either create it manually like this, or you can literally find any image you like and just put it in the public folder. So for me, I copied this SVG and I'm just going to paste it here. There we go. That's it. And now I have my logo. Now I'm going to go back inside of the components. Inside of the app folder, dashboard _ components, logo like that. I'm going to save this. So make sure it matches the path. So /logo.svg matches the public folder, logo.svg, no other folders inside. Great. And now let's go ahead back inside of our sidebar. And now we can import this logo from ./logo because they are in the same folder like that. So let me go back to our application, and there we go. You can see our logo right here at the top. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and let's create some sidebar routes. So let's go back inside of our sidebar. Outside of this div, which is wrapping the logo, create a new div with the class name of flex-call and w-full. And inside, we're going to create a new component, sidebar routes, like this. And if we save, of course, we're going to get an error. So let's go ahead and resolve that. So in the same _components folder, create a new file, sidebar-routes.tsx, like this. Let's go ahead and let's mark this as use client, and let's export const sidebar routes like this. And let's just return a div saying routes like that. Let's go back inside of our sidebar component, and just as we did with logo, we can now import the sidebar routes, and we should no longer get any errors. Great, and you can see a very small text saying routes right here. Great, let's go inside of this sidebar routes, and let's go ahead and let's prepare this. So I'm going to go ahead and create a div, which I already have. Let's give it a class name of flex-call and w-full, like that. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and let's create our routes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write const guest routes like this. I'm going to go ahead and open an object. I'm going to give it an icon of layout from Lucid React. Whoops. I'm going to give it a label of dashboard like that, an href of / like that. And I'm going to copy this like this, and I'm going to change this to a compass from Lucid React. And this is going to be browse like that. So just browse, and the href is going to go to /search like that. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's just simply write const routes is equal to guest routes. So this doesn't make any sense now, but later this is going to be dynamic. But let's just prepare this constant for now. Great. Now let's remove this text saying routes, and instead let's write routes.map. Let's get the individual route, and let's go ahead and let's render the sidebar item, which we don't have, but we can already put it here. So feel free to save. You're going to get an error, but we're going to resolve that very soon. So give it a key of route.href, give it an icon of route.icon, and give it a label of route.label. And don't forget the actual href, so route.href, like that. Perfect. So now we have to create the sidebar item. So let's go ahead inside of our _components folder, create a new file, sidebar-item.tsx, like this. Let's go ahead and let's mark this as use client, like that. And let's go ahead and export const sidebar item and just return a div sidebar item like this. Now you can safely go back inside of your sidebar-routes, and you can import the sidebar item the same way we did with logo and the sidebar routes themselves. Great, and now you can see, since I have two objects inside of this array, you can see that what is rendered is sidebar item 2 times. So now we're going to style this sidebar item, and we're going to use these individual icons of each route as well as their label. Great. So let's do that now. So I'm just going to expand everything for me here. And I'm going to go ahead inside of the sidebar item, and I'm going to create an interface. So interface sidebar item props like that. It's going to have an icon, which is the type of Lucid icon from Lucid-React like that. Label is going to be a string, and href is going to be a string like that. Now let's go ahead and let's extract all of those props here. So icon, label, and href like that. And let's go ahead and map them to sidebar item props like this. And now you can notice that inside of our sidebar-route,